I've spent 25 years with this body that was either obese or a complete car crash.
I think if you have your self-worth and the inner work done in the right place, as you get these adjustments done, you'll find that you're way more at peace.
I just could not believe for the first time in my life, I had a flat stomach.
You and I train hard. We are fitness coaches. We transformed hundreds and hundreds of women.
There's such a paradox of how we're supposed to act, look, feel, present ourselves. It's exhausting.
It was one of the best feelings ever. And as you say, it does feel like you've been reborn. And it just takes so long to adapt when you see yourself. You'll be walking past the mirror, like checking yourself out, like, that's me. Siobhan, if you could summarize in one sentence your results or the outcome from you deciding to have cosmetic surgery, what would you say?
Life-changing. That's the only way I can describe it, is life-changing. Just 2 words.
I feel the same. I know why I feel that way, because it's allowed me to become a person that I actually never thought that I could be, because I believed I was stuck in a body that could never look like this body looks like now. So life-changing for sure. Why do you say life-changing?
For me, I felt like before I got cosmetic surgery, my body didn't represent who I was for years and years, for so many different reasons. And that meant that I was insecure, that I was never fully confident. And so making that change made me a totally different person. It wasn't just about the aesthetic, although of course everybody wants to look good. It's about the confidence that gave me as a person and feeling like it actually represented who I was. I was no longer trapped in this body that wasn't mine.
I can relate to that 100%. I want this to be a very honest podcast, and I want everything laid out on the table for us to talk about as fitness coaches, as women who show off our bodies a lot. What work have we had done? And I'm happy to admit that I've had breast augmentation, I've had a tummy tuck, I got this done at the same time. I've had lip filler, got hair extensions.
I wondered if that was hair extensions. Your hair's looking good, girl.
Thank you. I had it done recently. And also I've had my eyebrows tattooed. So there's certain bits that obviously aren't surgery. There's certain bits that are more like aesthetics. But definitely these are all parts of the pursuit of making us look more feminine, I suppose. The beauty standards that might be argued against, I will definitely admit that I lean into because I really enjoy it. So how does that compare to yourself? Are you on par or slightly higher below?
I raise you. So I've had breast lift, breast augmentation, tummy tuck, Botox, lip filler. I've had my teeth shaved.
Oh, I forgot I've got cosmetic bonding. Yeah?
Teeth, yeah, just my canines. And I had Invisalign. Mm-hmm. I think that's everything apart from the standard, like getting your hair dyed, which pretty much everyone does.
Yeah.
I think that's everything to add to my list.
Which is pretty profound, to be honest. Like tummy tuck, breast lift, breast augmentation, we both had that. Why did you go down that route?
Well, I grew up very, very overweight. From, I think, maybe between the age of 3 and 5, I was carrying a lot of body fat. I used to comfort eat, and that was off the back of having quite a traumatic childhood. And that carried with me until the age of probably about 19. And then I lost the weight very, very quickly. And I'm talking about like stones in weeks. And I'd actually done that before when I was about 15. So I went through 2 cycles of being very, very overweight, and then the weight coming off very quickly, gaining it very quickly, and then losing it again. So at age 19, when I did it again, the weight came off, but this time I was left with horrendously loose skin. The doctors told me that at 19, you should bounce back. But unfortunately, I have quite poor elasticity in my skin. And I think, to be honest, it was also because I'd gone through that cycle twice of drastic weight gain, loss very, very quickly. And so I was left with this body that was still so painful to look at. You know, it was painful before because it was excessive body fat. And now it was painful because I could see all of that trauma that I'd been through, and I was still left with a body that didn't represent me and made me feel very, very self-conscious. And so I knew that there was no way I could ever change that body unless I got cosmetic surgery. And I spent years trying to like just be okay with it and be like, oh, it's better than my old body, so I'll just live with it. But it never made me happy. So I made the decision in 2015 to have all of the surgery done.
It's really scary how similar our journeys are. You said that obviously traumatic childhood, emotional eating, same thing as me. Grew up as the fat kid. Age 19 is where you lost the weight, and that's also when I started losing the weight. So spooky. Funny how the universe brings people together, right? I also spent a lot of time toying with the idea of whether to get the surgery or not, because I'm sorry, even if you are overweight and then you lose all that body fat, but yet you've got like drapes of skin hanging from you. Like my lower belly was like, felt like an apron that I was like always having to wear high-waisted things. I couldn't wear anything like skin tight or bodycon because I was so self-conscious about these pockets of skin. And it makes you self-conscious when it comes to intimate relationships. It was really affecting my confidence. And the only time that I decided, okay, you deserve, I suppose, to get it done was when I'd gone through my bodybuilding competitions and got so lean and realized this is not body fat. This is literally just skin that only can be removed surgically. It took me a long time to convince myself that I wasn't still just fat or that I wasn't still just in a position of needing to work harder to get that body that I want. And I don't know whether that's something that you experienced as well.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting because from my experience, when you've become or come from being the fat girl, you still carry this body dysmorphia. And I think I even catch myself now being like, oh, I can't wear this for like a split second. Or I'll catch myself in a video and be like, oh, I'm that small or I'm that lean. So straight after you've lost the body fat, you're still working through these complexities of, is that me in the mirror? And then you go through, as you said, oh, well, maybe I'm not lean enough. Maybe I need to lose more body fat. And unfortunately for me, when I had lost the weight, obviously it was very, very unhealthily the way I did it. And so I spent most of my 20s with horrendous disordered eating habits. And so I was always questioning, should I be leaner? Do I need to lose more? And almost punishing myself because I had this skin, but it wasn't fat. And I think it took me many years to realize, you know, after seeing surgeons, they were like, you're never going to get rid of this unless it's surgically removed.
How long did it take you to make the decision then from knowing that you wanted to get that body where you don't have loose skin around your midsection, we don't have boobs that are hanging to our knees because of how much body fat we've lost? Like, when did you start to think after getting to that point of losing the body fat, I am still not there and I think this is going to require maybe some intervention, to actually getting the surgery done?
Do you know, I suffered in silence for years, and I spoke to my friends about it, and I was still so self-conscious because initially you're self-conscious because you're overweight, but then I was self-conscious, as you said earlier, trying to like cover my stomach or wear really tight dresses to cover the fold or whatever it might be. I was still self-conscious in relationships. And then I spoke to my parents, well, my dad and my stepmom, about it, and I was just honest for the first time ever, and I was like, I'm miserable in my body. They've never seen my body. And I showed my stepmom and I was like, this is what I'm working with. Like, this is not the normal body of whatever I was, 24, 25. And to my surprise, you know, my parents aren't exactly like pro cosmetic surgery, but they were like, look, if you want to do this and it's making you that unhappy, we think you should. And it was like, damn, if my parents are telling me that this really is a problem and my feelings are valid, then I'm going to do it. And for the first time, I just felt like a complete release of like, I'm going to actually feel good in my body for the first time in my entire life. And I just knew it was right there and then.
That's amazing. That makes me so happy to hear, because we can battle with our own feelings and our own perspectives and not trust ourselves for so long until we have someone that we love and we trust that validates how we feel. I remember looking up to certain fat loss or weight loss influencers, content creators, and they were wearing their loose skin like a badge of pride. Like, these are just like my battle scars. I've lost my body fat. Like, this is just part of me. I never felt that way. I was just like, what the fuck? I've done all of this work to then look like this. And as you say, it's like the way that you feel, your body does not match that. And I don't know why the draw to get your body to look how you feel. Like, you and I train hard. We are fitness coaches. We transformed hundreds and hundreds of women. We feel like athletes. Yet if we haven't had this surgery done and we still had loose skin draping off of us, we wouldn't necessarily feel like athletes. The question is why?
I think it's interesting because you had your surgery in more modern times. I'm slightly older than you. So when I had my surgery, like there was not this body positivity movement on social media where people are like pulling at their rolls and showing their stretch marks and their loose skin. Like, that just wasn't a thing. I didn't even know like how many women were out there with the same thing as me. So I was just very insular in knowing this was my issue. But even if I did experience it in modern times, I don't think that would have made a bit of difference to me. I don't know. I get what you're saying in the sense that when we do have this loose skin or where we do have these imperfections, perhaps some people would feel less of a fitness coach person to look up to because of that. Perhaps because people don't idolize those bodies. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But I also think, you know, if we decided to carry that around with us now, it would be very inspirational to a lot of women. But for me, I don't feel inspired by my body like that. You know, I don't feel my most confident, highest self. So I'm not going to keep that look to inspire other women who are also probably not happy in their bodies.
You touch on a really interesting point here, which is you feeling your higher self and you feeling good within your body. We can't define what is going to make someone feel good. And you'll have it a lot of the time, I'm sure, on discovery calls where women will say, it's not for a vanity thing, but I would like to lose XYZ amount of body weight. And they feel like they have to define that they're not doing it from a perspective of striving to look better. But you and I will also agree on the fact that there is no problem with wanting to look better for you. There's no issue with it.
100%.
So what we are doing, I suppose, is adapting and adjusting our appearance so that we feel good. And that's also where these other elements come in, where we'll wear makeup, we'll have the filler, we'll have our hair dyed. And it all boils down to, okay, well, I guess what are beauty standards? What are societal beauty standards? What have we been taught? You know, long hair, pretty eyelashes. But you can't change the fact that naturally we might just be drawn to wanting that. Some people might not care, but we do. And so are we wrong for wanting that or leaning into that? Or Are we wrong for leaning into, I want the big boobs, I want the flat belly? What's your thoughts on it?
I think a lot of women have a problem with just saying, I want to feel fucking amazing. Like, I want to feel shit hot coming into a room. I want to wear whatever I want. I want to feel sexy. And I do feel sorry for women because we are kind of conditioned to be like, be sexy, but don't want to be sexy. There's such a paradox of how we're supposed to act, look, feel, present ourselves. It's exhausting. But I'm not ashamed to say, like, I want to feel 10 out of 10. My version of 10 out of 10. Not perfection, but just my best self inside and out. And I think every woman does. I'm sure there are some women out there that don't care, but in my opinion, it's a small percentage. And I think, yeah, there are societal pressures. I do think there's a lot of toxic stuff on social media. This whole like doll face at the moment where there's so much AI going on that everybody has the big lips. Everybody looks like a doll. Like, yes, that's very toxic. I do feel sorry for the younger generation, but I'm not worried about fixing every tiny little part of me until I'm this perfect doll. I just want to feel my most confident self. And I think now, I'm there. I will have to have my surgery redone, but right now I'm happy.
Is the trust in ourselves to enhance features that we might like about ourselves or that we might not like, and not tread a line where maybe you could fall onto the other side, which is actually pushing it too far and making all of your self-worth about your appearance, because that's what ultimately defines whether you are a confident woman, I suppose, is how much self-worth you have. And some of that might be tied to how you present yourself. Some people might really tie all of their self-worth to their achievements and their accomplishments, and that also in itself can be toxic. It can be toxic in terms of whatever you tie your self-worth to. And so for us, we have some sense of worth attached to how we physically present ourselves, but we know that it's not everything about us. We're multifaceted. We've got great, personalities and achievements and accomplishments, and there's so much more to our life than how we look. But also we want the way that we present ourselves to be of importance. And I guess it's the same for men as well. Men want to, as you say, walk into a room, command it. They want to feel strong. They want to feel empowered. That is something that, again, also women want. And that all comes from the way that we've evolved to, I suppose, have the signaling of who is the strongest person to survive, to attract a partner. These things are also individual in terms of how they're perceived. And I think there will be some women who had the mindset of me, maybe listening to this podcast, they will think negatively of people that have work done. They will think negatively of people that have cosmetic surgery. They'll think negatively of women that wear lots of makeup or that have loads of extra bits done here and there. I used to think that way. I used to think negatively and I used to judge it. I don't know whether you ever felt that way.
I suppose maybe a lot of makeup. I'm sure there's been some point in my life where I'm like, oh, she wears a lot of makeup. But, I think when I was younger, I probably was quite judgmental of people, a lot younger. But as I get older, I'm just like, whatever you want to do, so long as it's not hurting anyone else, live and let live. I don't have time to worry about, this girl wants to get her boobs done or she's had this work. I don't care. All I care about is myself and whether I'm happy. And, if that, whatever makes you happy, do that. I don't have time to worry about what other people are doing. And I think women that cast that judgment on others, really, they need to take a deep look inside and go, well, why do I feel that way? Because if I'm projecting this, she's had her boobs done and she has this, she wears lots of makeup. Why am I spending my time worrying about that? And what does that really mean? Perhaps it's my own insecurity. Perhaps I actually do want that stuff done, but I'm not willing to say it out loud. It could be anything. But ultimately it is going to be more to do with you than that individual that you're casting judgment on.
You've hit the nail on the head, 100%. It's driven by insecurity. For me, it was. I would look at women and think, oh my goodness, she's had all of this done. Where was that insecurity coming from? Possibly at that point down to the fact that it was so bloody expensive that I didn't have the resources to get that done, even though I might have wanted to. Or the fact that these women might have known how to beautify themselves. And as a teenager, I had no idea how to do makeup. I didn't know where to start. Or I believed that no amount of makeup, no amount of doing my hair would make me feel confident in a body that looked atrocious, right? It wasn't going to fix how I felt about myself. And it was all driven by insecurity about how I felt within my own skin. That is something that can only be resolved when you start to pour love into yourself, and then also, I think, feel happy for other people. But it's difficult to feel happy for other people when you feel so unhappy within yourself. This is one thing that you might have found that I definitely have, is like, as I feel better about me and who I am so happy for other people for doing their own thing, doing whatever. I would never cast these comments before that I might have done when I was younger and insensitive. And sometimes, I will hear people say certain things like, gosh, I don't know how you wear makeup to the gym, or gosh, I don't know how, you could, deal with those hair extensions. You must get so sweaty. And I always think, I wonder what that's bringing up for them.
Yeah, 100%. I think that whole wearing makeup to the gym thing, I used to say that, like, oh, how is she wearing makeup to the gym? Another judgment on someone. And if I reflect back, it's because I was constantly giving out these comments in front of others to deflect the fact that maybe I didn't look as good as that person in the gym who was wearing makeup, who I was probably very jealous of. And so it is always a reflection of you. And I think whether you're the person casting the judgment or whatever, you have to do the inner work to be happy in yourself, because whether you can get the cosmetic surgery or you can't, you could have every enhancement in the world. If you haven't done the inner work in yourself, you are never, ever going to be happy. And I think you raised another important thing. Women that maybe don't have the resources financially to fund things like this, they might say, oh, well, it's all right for her because she's got the money to have that, and I've had these kids and I can't do that after. And I get that. And I think it's a very valid point, actually, because a lot of women will have the breast augmentation, the tummy tucks and whatever, and they won't be honest about it. And that's toxic, because those poor women who maybe don't have the financial resources will look at these women and go, I've had 2 kids and I look like this and she looks like that. How? That's not fair. And that's why I've always strived to say, you know what, I've had all of this work and I will tell you everything I have had, because I think that's only fair on other women.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I mean, I documented it from start to finish on YouTube. Everyone saw everything. The new body reveal, the surgery, literally me coming out and not being able to speak coherent sentences. And if I do get any more work done, which is quite possible in the future, I've spoken about this on a podcast before, that I will document that too. I'm curious to know, is there anything that you still feel unhappy about with your huge transformation that you've been through? Is there any work? I think that's such a funny word. Is there any work that you're going to have done?
So I had my breast augmentation tummy tuck almost 10 years ago. It'll be 10 years in December. So like, they're not looking like they did on day one, you know what I mean? Gravity takes its toll. And so I actually visited a surgeon while I was here this week. And I will be looking to get my boobs redone. I think after I have children, if I have children, I will be needing another tummy tuck because, my stomach is going to get big. I've got poor elasticity. So that will be on the cards at some point. Now I'm just toying with when I will have my boobs redone, but I want them done like now. And anything else, I don't think I would have anything else done apart from keeping up my lip filler once a year. I ain't getting any younger. So the Botox is, on a repeat prescription. But apart from that, no. I think I personally feel, coming from a place where I used to be, when I was very insecure, very self-critical, and I would look in the mirror and pick apart everything, like the symmetry of my face, my nose needs to be smaller, this. And there was a toxic time in my 20s where I probably would have taken it too far, and thankfully I didn't, because I did the inner work. So now I'm able to say, I don't have the perfect face, I don't have the perfect body, but I'm comfortable with not being perfect,
Perfect is such a subjective thing as well. Like, what is perfect? Even if we reach perfect, would we know what perfect is? I also think, I don't know. For me, I'm at this point now where I'm like, wow, I never thought I could look like this. I'm like, oh my God. Like, my stomach is flat. My boobs are booming. I'm very, very happy. There is only one thing that I find irritating is the biggest word that I can, or the best word that I can use to describe it, which is I have a lot of loose skin on my, I don't want to say a lot, I suppose it's contextual for each individual, but I do have noticeable loose skin on my inner thighs. As I get older and I see my skin elasticity changing, I know that that's going to get a little bit droopier. It's annoying when it comes to the freaking chub rub that I get. It's something that is such a dichotomy between there's this like huge quad on one side and then there's like this loose skin folds on the other side. And I really do feel like and I've spoken to recently another client who's going through different types of lifts after having lost 100 kilos, which is insane.
Mental.
And gosh, every single time she's had a different lift, like she just recently had an arm lift, you just see it in her, the confidence radiating through. Like, she's now got the most incredible sculpted shape that was there all along, but you couldn't see it because it was behind the skin. And that is something that there's this kind of feeling which is just like, you feel like unfinished until you kind of like, I know that I really want this. And that's probably how you feel at this point in time, knowing that you want to get your boobs redone. And it's how I feel knowing that, like, if this, and I think a lot of people feel that way about one thing, they'll be like, if this was done, then it'd feel great. Afterwards, you might find something else that you might want to get altered or adjusted. But I'll be honest and say that I think if you have your self-worth and the inner work done in the right place, as you get these adjustments done, you'll find that you're way more at peace. And eventually it'll probably get to the point where we're relatively at peace until something comes along and changes. Again, children, if we decide to have children, as we've already had tummy tucks, we're going to have that revisited, or we're just going to have to deal with the outcome and accept that that is the way our body is. We're never ever going to bounce back as anyone who has not had a tummy tuck. And those are things that you have to think about in the future. When you get these procedures done, you're going to have to think about, okay, how long are these boobs going to last? Do I start saving for them for the next 10 years? What about if I decide to have kids? Are those things that you thought about a lot at the time? Or did you just jump in and think, I want this now?
I gave them some thought, but to be honest, nothing would have stopped me. Like, absolutely nothing. And they prepare you, they say, obviously with the lift, I had to have my nipples removed and repositioned. And so they said, you might not be able to breastfeed. There's a number of things that they go through, but nothing would have stopped me. It was like night and day in terms of who I went in as and who I came out as. So I think, yes, I did think, okay, in 10 years, I'll probably have to get it done again. I wonder if I'll be in the financial position to do that. Because back then, when I had it done, I was 24, 25. I took out a loan and I didn't have the money to do it. But I just thought, when it comes to it, if I don't have the money in 10 years' time, I will do that again. I would put myself into debt to be as happy as I turned out to be afterwards.
It's a big thing to think about when it comes to the financial aspect, because when I knew that I needed the surgery, and I say I knew I needed it because I'm talking about how I felt on the inside. It wasn't a want, it was a need. When I knew that I needed it, I was not in a position financially to be able to afford it. We both had our breast augmentation and tummy tuck done at the same time, otherwise known as a mummy makeover.
Yes. Yes.
We were not mummies. We were fat girls. So when I decided that I wanted it done, I was just like, how am I going to afford this? Because full transparency in terms of the cost, I'm not sure how much you paid, but I had my surgery done here in Dubai, and the total was around 15 to 16,000 pounds. I'm sure that you could have cheaper in the UK. I'm sure you could have way cheaper if you went abroad, somewhere like Turkey, to get it done. But my home was here, the support I had was here, and I just felt very safe in the hands of the incredible surgeon. And actually, Dr. Matteo, who did my surgery, he was voted like best cosmetic surgeon in Dubai for several years in a row. Like, if we're going to do this thing, we're going to do it right. But that's because I saved up and I decided that I was going to do the very best that I could to get the highest quality. And I was happy to wait. However, if I knew that I wouldn't be able to get to that position, would I have probably taken out a loan, maybe gone cheaper, done it elsewhere? Yes, because I still wanted the outcome regardless. What about for you? What did it look like when it came to making that financial decision, and how did you go about your surgery?
So my surgery was a lot cheaper back then. I think off the top of my head, it was something like 11, 12 grand for the whole bag. And it was something like you get one surgery and you get like the other one for a discount or something, or something like that.
Buy one, get one half price.
Yes, it wasn't a backstreet surgeon, but it was on Harley Street actually. And I decided that I was going to take out a loan and I was going to pay off the interest because I didn't have the money. And I was in such a fortunate position because my dad, my dad, like, he would never just like give me money willy-nilly. Like, it's not that vibe with us. But he waited right up until I was going to have the surgery done. And he was like, look, you're taking out this money. You're going to be paying X amount of interest. I'm going to loan you the money, but you're going to pay it back to me in the same way that you would pay back the bank with no interest. And that's probably one of the best things he's ever. I was floored. You know, my dad paying for my boobs. What? Like, that's just not, it's not that kind of, if you imagine a dad that would pay for his daughter's boobs, it's not my dad. You know what I mean?
You say that, but I've actually got a couple of friends, right, that have the most masculine, hardworking, like, I don't even know how to just, like, big male energy fathers, right? And when they've confided about how insecure they feel within their bodies, I think for a dad, it touches on the heartstrings of like, he wants his little girl to feel amazing and to feel like a princess. And even though, yes, it might be surgery that is, you know, part of your feminine sexual energy, I suppose, they still understand how that impacts you and how you carry yourself. And so they're happy to make that contribution or support where they can, which I think is amazing. I actually think it's really beautiful.
Yeah, I agree. My dad's very old school. And I think, you know, if I said to my dad, I'm going to go and get my lip filler done, he'd be like, what on earth? But I think maybe an element of it was the reason I was very overweight in the first place is because my mother allowed me to get that way. And my dad, unfortunately, not living with me, he had to watch that. You know, he'd pick me up on every other Saturday and he'd see me getting progressively fatter and fatter. And that was neglect by my mum. So he tried his best, but what can you do bi-weekly? So I think he probably felt, not guilt because it wasn't his fault, but he probably felt, you know, I'd been through all of this. It wasn't my fault initially that I'd gained so much weight so young. Then I didn't have the tools to lose it properly. And so he was like, you know, it's not your fault and you've been left with this. And so that was his way, maybe. We've never had this conversation. But maybe that was his way of stepping in and being like, now I can help in some way.
I think that's so beautiful. Ultimately, our parents and loved ones around us will really care that we are the happiest versions of ourselves. This is something that also, I suppose, has to be taken into consideration when you're explaining to family members and loved ones, and you need support after the surgery. I mean, having a tummy tuck and a breast augmentation at the same time, we were walking around like the hunchback of Notre Dame. Like, that was something where I basically needed the person that I was with to look after me as if they were like a full-time nurse. So having these conversations can't be avoided.
Absolutely. I don't think you could ever go through that alone, like physically and mentally. The mental for me is more before the physical. As you say, when you wake up, I have a very low pain threshold, and I found it very difficult in recovery to do day-to-day tasks as anybody would. But I really suffered with the pain, and having that support network around you to literally get you out of bed is needed.
Cook food, get you out of bed, help you take the medication, help you go to the toilet, help you literally wipe your ass. Because that is something that I needed some support with. Catch you from fainting when your blood pressure's low. You have to have that support, and you have to have someone that understands and is there to care for you. There's so much prep that goes into, okay, how am I going to decide to do this thing? I prepped by watching the shit out of all the YouTube videos. Like, I can't tell you how many vlogs I watched, how much I leaned into seeing other people's experiences. And that's why I felt so inclined to document my experience. And also, my experience was so different to everyone else's. Honestly, a lot of people who document their tummy tucks and get certain loose skin removal surgery done are not in the same level of condition that we are. That is something where I struggled to find someone as athletic, as into their training to go through that process. And something that I really worried about, and a lot of people who could be listening to this who have, I've got so many friends I've said, I would love to have my boobs done, but I just don't want to take the downtime. I couldn't take that much time from the gym. And I found that I've recovered really quickly. You know your body, you're athletic, you know what mobility you can do, you trust yourself. And also Dr. Matteo was a great surgeon who was able to guide me through it as someone, what can I do to move my body from my athletic capacity versus someone else? So to prepare for it and to go through it, I think you have to appreciate, one, you're going to be different to everyone else, but then two, it's probably good that you have some understanding of what you're in for. So how did you prepare in the lead up to the surgery to know what to expect? And how was your experience different to maybe anyone else's that you'd heard about?
Honestly, I think my experience is very, very different to yours, because we're going back obviously 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I didn't train. 10 years ago, I was still suffering with disordered eating habits, having lost the weight and thinking that I needed to eat next to nothing to keep the weight off. I think maybe at the time I was dabbling with some classes in the gym, and this is where weight training started to sort of come into play. But I didn't train. I didn't have any muscle. And so I think looking back, I actually went in quite blind. As I said, it wasn't, YouTube and Instagram and all of this kind of thing. And if it was on a small scale. So I really felt like I went in, I didn't know anybody that had had it done before. I went in pretty blind, apart from what they were telling me. And so when I woke up, and I knew it was going to be like painful, I knew it was going to be recovery, but I really didn't know what to expect. Apart from the basics, like you can't drive for X amount of time, you'll be able to walk in X amount of time. I didn't go through the whole process of how do I reintegrate back into training. So next time round, thankfully I'm better informed about what surgeon to go with. And it will be an interesting experience for me actually taking time off training for a significant period of time, which I've never done since I really got into weight training, and trying to work through that recovery.
That's scarier, I think, than what I went through. I can't tell you how many vlogs, how many YouTube videos I watched, how many podcasts I listened to about cosmetic surgery, about whether I go over the muscle or under the muscle, or how that's going to impact this type of training, or how often do I train chest. Like, all of this stuff the information was available. And to go into it not knowing anyone else that had been through it, completely blind, and you literally just come out of surgery with ice packs on your chest and you're like, great, what now? Like, it must have been terrifying.
I was fearless. I was fearless because no matter what the outcome, obviously I worried about what's the scar going to look like and things like that. But to be honest, I was in so much pain with what I was seeing in front of the mirror. I jumped fully into getting the surgery. I wasn't worried about anything else, because the pain that I was moving away from was so bad that whatever happened, it couldn't be worse than that, you know? Looking back, it was pretty wild. I didn't really know like what it would look like. I'd seen pictures because the surgeon at the time would show me similar bodies to mine and similar boobs to mine or whatever, and I could get an idea of what it would look like. But that was it.
What was your reaction when you first saw your body without all the bandages and all the dressings? What was your reaction?
I just could not believe, for the first time in my life, I had a flat stomach and boobs that didn't point down, you know, like the nipples were nippling. They were pointing in the right direction. And I was like, I've spent 25 years or whatever it is with this body that was either obese or a complete car crash. And now, for the first time, this is me. I felt, it sounds so mad, but I felt like reborn. I was like, right, this is me now. Let's go.
I think exactly the same thing. I was so surprised. I was like, oh my God, like, look at my fucking abs. Because I did a fat loss phase to get as lean as possible before the surgery. And so it was simply skin that they removed. It was the first time I ever saw my abs because the skin was that taut and that tight. I couldn't believe that that's what was under there. I was like, shit, you have been working hard. Like, that's what you look like. And the same thing with the boobs. I was like, she's sexy. I was like, damn. It was one of the best feelings ever. And as you say, it does feel like you've been reborn. And it just takes so long to adapt when you see yourself. You'd be walking past the mirror, like checking yourself out, like, that's me.
Well, the thing is, you work fucking hard. Like, it's not fair that someone like yourself is so bang on it with their nutrition, gets their ass in the gym all the time, like puts in a shift, and then what, you go home and you get to look at saggy skin as a result. Like, fuck that. You work too hard for that to be the reward. So, like, finally you would have actually seen the muscle that you'd spent years, not, 3 months, years of solid graph building. Like, you deserve to feel that good looking in the mirror.
I think it goes for anyone. If they're putting in the hard work to change, that they deserve to feel confident. And whether it's something in an instant, like changing your hair color, whether it's going through surgery, they're decisions that you must trust in yourself that it's okay for you to want that and to lean into doing it if it's right for you and to cut out all of the noise. I think it's something tangible for listeners to go away with, like a decision-making framework, could be helpful. But personally, I think it's the gut feeling. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we know that surgery comes with risk, and I'm never going to sit here and say, oh, you don't like something, so go and have the surgery. Like, you have to be aware of what the implications are of having cosmetic surgery, whether it's a small, like having your lips done or something larger. And so do your research and understand actually what could potentially happen and be well informed. But also if you're happy with that and you're weighing up, should I, shouldn't I, and you've got the finances, and it's just a matter of like, I don't know, maybe you've got like a negative connotation, like we were speaking about earlier, judgment or whatever. You always know what the right thing to do is. You always know what you want. Like, no matter what it is, relationships, work, it's the same with this. What is the answer to, if you've been miserable for the last 10, 20 years with your body and you have the opportunity to change it? Why would you not change it? For me, the alternative is spend another 20 years wishing that you did it 20 years prior,
God forbid anyone has to spend more time in a body that they despise. And we'll say this as fitness coaches. do not spend a single second longer being miserable in your body than where you need to. But also, if I had the resources to get the surgery done sooner, would I go back in time and have it done sooner? Probably. Yeah, because like nothing can take away and change how I feel within my body now. And also, I suppose with us both thinking about what we want moving forwards, that's the reason we're pondering on it and thinking, okay, like where can I fit this into my busy schedule? But it needs to be done because it's going to complete us in a way. So I'm just really grateful to you, Siobhan, for being so open and honest and documenting everything, because a lot of women will say like, oh, women that have these procedures done, etc., they're not real. But I think what is real is being truly authentic and honest, and you are 100% that. So thank you so much for joining. I appreciate it.
You are so welcome. You can always rely on me, to be honest.
Where can the listeners find you if they want to go give you a follow and just learn a little bit more about you and your journey?
Best place is Instagram, Siobhan_envision. Don't go for Siobhan.envision. That's the account that got hacked at times.
I will leave it in the description box. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you.